Okay, so let's jump right in. When you think of the Mongol invasions, what comes to mind? Probably just chaos and destruction, right? But what if I told you that's only half the story? That behind this image of a totally ruthless conqueror, there's an incredible tale of ambition, high-stakes strategy, and one of the most baffling decisions in military history. The man at the center of it all? Batu Khan, grandson of the one and only Genghis Khan, and his mission, his inheritance, was simple: conquer the entire world.
And here's the paradox, right? This is where it gets really interesting. To the people he conquered, he was literally the scourge of God. I mean, a name that echoed in fear for centuries. But to his own people, he was Sayan Khan, the good Khan. So how does that even happen? How can one single person be both a symbol of ultimate destruction and a revered founder?
Yeah, that's the big question we're going to tackle. And the way we're going to do it is by looking at 5 key moments, 5 huge decisions he made. These are the choices that not only made an entire continent tremble in fear, but also, believe it or not, ended up building a brand new empire right out of the ashes. So our story really kicks off, not with Batu himself, but with his grandfather. We're talking about the legendary Genghis Khan, who dies in 1227. Now, Genghis didn't just leave his family a massive chunk of land. He left them a mission. You could almost call it a sacred duty. Keep marching west. Don't stop until you hit the last sea. Conquer everything in your path. And for about 8 years, that idea was just bubbling under the surface. Then, bam! 1235, the Mongol elite all get together for this huge meeting called a Kurultai, and there was really only one thing on the agenda: the Great Western Campaign. It was finally time to make good on Genghis Khan's will, and the man they put in charge of this whole thing? You guessed it, Batu. Now you might be thinking, why him? He wasn't even the most experienced commander they had. Well, it's complicated. First off, those Western lands, they were technically his inheritance. It was his birthright. Second, and this is a big one, his father, Jochi, had some, let's say, rumors about his lineage. A massive victory would shut those rumors down for good and restore the family honor. And finally, you have to understand Mongol politics. It was brutal. Saying no wasn't an option. It would have been seen as a weakness, basically a political death sentence. So this brings us to his first big decision. He said yes. He took command. Honestly, what other choice did he have? Okay, so fast forward to the fall of 1237. This colossal Mongol army is now parked right on the border of the Russian principalities. You got to picture Russia at this time. It wasn't one unified country. It was a messy patchwork of different states, all rich, all proud, and all pretty much at each other's throats. They'd actually had a run-in with the Mongols about 15 years before this, and it did not go well for them, but they seem to have completely forgotten that lesson. Well, they were about to get a very harsh reminder. But here's the thing, Batu didn't just charge in. He was strategic. He sent a message to the first city in his path, Ryazan. The deal was simple: give us 1/10 of everything you have. Their response? Well, it was defiant. It was brave. And let's be honest, from a military point of view, it was complete suicide. And that's exactly what Batu was hoping for. It gave him the perfect excuse to unleash absolute, total war. So after a brutal 5-day siege, Ryazan fell. And what happened next? Well, it wasn't just a typical sacking of a city. This was Batu's second huge decision. He decided to use pure terror as a strategic weapon. And this is a really crucial point. This wasn't just random, mindless violence. No, this was a cold, calculated message. See, Batu knew that getting stuck in long, drawn-out sieges would kill the momentum of his invasion. So by making an absolute, horrifying example of Ryazan, by wiping it off the map, he was sending a crystal-clear signal to every other city out there. If you resist, this is your fate, total annihilation. But if you surrender, you might just live. It was, frankly, a terrifyingly brilliant psychological operation. And it worked. The news of what happened at Ryazan spread like wildfire, causing absolute panic. City after city started to fall. By 1241, Batu's armies were turning their sights west, toward Europe. Now, Europe was feeling pretty good about itself, with its heavily armored knights and its big stone castles. They had absolutely no idea what was about to hit them. So the question is, how were the Mongols just so unstoppable? This really shows you the heart of the conflict. It was like 2 different worlds of warfare colliding. On one side, you have the European knights. Their whole thing was about individual bravery, the big, heavy, predictable charge straight at the enemy. And on the other side, The Mongols, they didn't play by those rules. They brought total war. We're talking coordinated strategy, incredible intelligence gathering, and of course, their classic move, the feigned retreat. They'd pretend to run, lure their enemies into a disorganized chase, and then snap the trap shut, surround and destroy.
And the result was just devastating. I mean, get this. In April of 1241, in the span of just 2 days, Mongol armies completely wiped out the two biggest forces in Eastern Europe. First, a combined Polish-German army at Legnica, then the main Hungarian army at the Sasha River. Gone. Just like that. The road into the very heart of Europe was now completely, totally open. By the end of that year, 1241, Mongol scouts were spotted near Vienna. Can you imagine the panic? Europe was frickin' out. The Pope literally called Batu the Antichrist. The entire continent was just holding its breath, waiting for the final knockout punch. And then, in the spring of 1242, something happened that nobody could have predicted. Batu made his third massive decision. He ordered a full retreat. To the Europeans, it felt like a miracle from God, a divine intervention that saved Western civilization. But the real reason was much more calculated. It begs the question, right? Why? Why would he turn back at the absolute height of his power, with everything at his feet?
Well, the official story was that the great Khan, Ogedei, had died back in Mongolia, and tradition said that all the princes had to go back to elect a new leader. But that's only part of it. This was also a genius political play. See, Batu's main rival, his cousin Guyak, was probably going to be the next great Khan, and Batu needed to be closer to home to protect his own interests. Plus, there were practical problems. His army was worn out, their supply lines were stretched thin, and a really wet spring had turned the Hungarian plains into a giant swamp. So the Khan's death was the perfect cover story. It let him pull out undefeated, saving his army and keeping his legendary reputation intact. So this retreat from Europe really set the stage for his last and maybe most important decisions. His army headed back east, but he didn't go all the way home to the capital in Mongolia. Instead, he stopped. He set up camp in the super lush pasture lands along the lower Volga River. And it was right here that he made his fourth and fifth big moves. First, he decided to defy the new great Khan. And second, he decided to build his own empire. So, just as he predicted, his rival Guyuk eventually becomes the new great Khan in 1246. And what's the first thing Guyuk does? He summons Batu to the capital to pay his respects. But everyone knew it was a trap. If Batu went, he'd almost certainly be killed. But if he refused, it was an act of open rebellion. So what did he do? This was decision number 4. He sent a message back saying, essentially, sorry, can't make it. Got a bad leg. He refused the summons and just started ruling his own lands like he was already the king. In this moment, this is his final transformation. He's not just Batu the Conqueror anymore, carrying out his grandfather's last wishes. He's now Batu the state builder. His focus shifted from conquest to governance, to actually ruling the huge territory he'd carved out for himself. You know, he was smart. He could see that the massive, sprawling Mongol Empire was never going to last. It was going to break apart, and he just decided to get ahead of the curve in his corner of the world. And he didn't waste any time. He made his fifth and final great decision. It was time to build something. He founded a capital city, Sarai Batu, and started turning his nomadic horde into an actual settled state. He set up a system for ruling the Russian princes. They could keep governing themselves, as long as they paid him tribute. It was way smarter and cheaper than trying to occupy that whole territory forever. And by doing all this, by creating order, by making trade routes safe, by establishing a system of justice, the man Europe called the Antichrist got a new name from his own followers, Sign Khan, the Good Khan. So think about that journey we just followed. It starts at that great assembly where he accepts this monumental mission. It leads through the smoking ruins of Ryazan, across the battlefields where the pride of European knighthood was just shattered, and it ends with the brilliant political move of founding his very own empire. When you boil it all down, Batu really was the architect of his own destiny. He came so close, maybe just one step away from conquering the known world. And then he stopped, turned around, and decided to build his own instead. And that brings us right back to the paradox we started with. His legacy is just split right down the middle. For Russia and the lands he conquered, he was the man who started 2 centuries of what they called the Mongol yoke, a time of foreign rule that completely changed the course of their history. But for his own people, He was the founding father, the guy who gave them a home, stability, and a system of laws that would endure for a quarter of a millennium. It all leaves us with a pretty deep question about figures like this in history, doesn't it? What really defines a legacy? Is it what you conquer, what you destroy, or is it what you create and what you build? For Batu Khan, the incredible thing is that the answer seems to be both.